Today, let's try to discuss something that was related to uh, UI automation. So let's see what we can do with UI automation, and also we would like to see something that was related to uh, UI automation, and also how the exception handling happens and how the reporting happens at a very high level. Okay. So let's take a small process here. So before that, I just want to download the application. So let me extract the data here. Okay, so we have the application. Yes, we have the application. And also, let me just see if we have the Excel file too, so that I can just have the process run for us. It's- So let me open the files. Okay, yeah, fine. So let me just have a walk through the process. So this is the application we'll be trying to utilize. It's a any teller application. Okay. So we have the data here from our particular input file. So we have data here. So which talks about caching on US check, not on US check. And also we have something called transaction status and the comments. Okay. So what we need to do is basically we need to process all this particular data by entering the values into this particular application, and we need to capture the transaction number, and we need to capture the status whether it was successful or failure or a business exception. And if it is success, we will write the comments as success, and if it is something that was related to a business exception, so we would like to write the comments for the same. Right. So what as an RPA developer we should be learning on this particular things, or what should we keeping in the mind when we are trying to automate a particular process? So one thing we need to keep in mind is something, we are not only doing the happy flow path. So a happy flow path is nothing but you will be trying to enter your caching value on US check, not on US check, get the transaction, update the status in the comments successfully. So that is what we call as a happy flow path. So we need to gracefully handle something that was related to exceptions, which is even business exceptions as well as system exception. So what is an exception here? So exception is defined as deviation from the actual behavior of your process. So it was supposed to happen, but it was not happening. So why it was not happening? Let's say that I want to generate a CIBIL score. So you need to enter the Aadhaar card. But Aadhaar card is something we know it's a 16-digit number. But the customer has given something around like 14-digit number, or else like the customer has given less than 15 digits or more than 15 digits. So will there be any purpose of entering or processing those data into the application? Though you process all the data, at the end you won't be able to generate a CIBIL score. So you will be not able to complete your particular process due to some data validation, which is called as a business exception. So you're deviating a particular rule here as per the business, which you need to handle. So that is one thing. And the second thing you also need to keep in mind is the system exception. If there is something happened which is not known during your particular process, so you should be also able to handle those things. So today we will try to see those sort of scenarios, how to handle the business exceptions and how to handle a system exception during process automation. And also at the end, let's say that I'm processing all these five transactions or four transactions. I need to know the status of all these four transactions in a report, right? So I need to get the transaction number, I need to get the status, whether it's success or failure, and also I need to get the comments, like why this has been failed or not, because it's been processed by the bot. You need to keep that particular things in mind, right? So this is what you need to keep in mind while processing your particular bot or building a particular bot, right? So let me just open UiPath. So let me just create a new file. So let's take a sequence. So we are trying to automate UI application. So let me just create a classes or exam, right? So that is our agenda basically. So it has created something for us. So first thing is what we need to do. We will try to understand it manually. The first thing is I need to read the Excel. After reading the Excel, what I need to do? I need to loop for each loop and process your particular data by entering the values, capturing the transaction number, updating that in the particular sheet, and click on accept and move to the next transaction. So I need to process all this data till the last transaction, right? So that is my agenda here. Okay. So first step I'll try to do is trying to read the particular Excel file, right? So I need to read the Excel file here. So what I'll do, I'll open UiPath. So what is the activity which will help us in reading the Excel file? So we have activity called read range workbook. So read range workbook is an activity which will help you to read the data from an Excel. So you also have Excel related activities. So but workbook is something which is bit faster and that doesn't require any containers or predefined activities to work with the Excel, right? So where your particular Excel was there. So it was there on the desktop. So it was in any data teller application. So what is the sheet name? It's basically sheet name, sheet one. Okay. So what is the data where it was getting stored? So it was getting stored in a variable called control K DT1. Okay. So DT1 is the data which you want to go with. Okay. So fine. So now I want to go with for each row in data table for each row in a data table. So what is the data table you are trying to go with? So I'll say like it's basically a DT1 I want to process. Okay. And in the body, what you want to basically do. So basically I want to go with use application of process. I need to launch the process basically. Okay. So indicate on the application which is the process or application you want to automate. So I'll say that this is the application I want to automate. Right. So during the process here, you will have some what you can say close or open. So what I'll say is I'll say like always close the process when it's done. And if not open, try to open the process. If it's already open, so try to process. If it's not open, try to launch the application. So that is what we try to require here, right? So it was launched, and we need to have the data right before in hand. So what I'll do, I'll use a multiple assign to get the data. Right. So I'll be trying to utilize multiple assign here. So what is the data you want to go with basically? So I need to enter the data here into cache in on your stake or not on your stake, right? Which I need to take it from the Excel. So control K str underscore cache in. So how can you get the data here? So we can utilize something called current row of. So you can provide the column name here so that the first row item will be extracted for us, right? So I need to provide the caching dot toString, right? So I'll just hit on save. So similarly, I want to go here with str underscore on US check. So it is also current row of data we are trying to process here is on US check and dot to string. And similarly, control K str underscore not on US check is where we try to get here as current row of not on US check dot string. Right. So we uh, have our particular data, so which you need to enter. So in the application, what you're trying to do basically, I'm trying to enter the data, right? So for each loop, I'm trying to type the values. So I'm just going with the happy flow path. So we'll also discuss what happens if something exception happens, right? So I'll use a type into. I'm trying to indicate on application that I want to enter some value in the cache in, right? Just hit on confirm. So we need to enter the data related to caching, right? So it's str caching. Okay. So similarly, I want to go with indicate on US check, hit on confirm, str on US check. And finally, I want to enter str not on US check. Hit on confirm. So str not on US check. Okay. So after which I want to extract the data. So I'll be using get text. Okay. So I'll indicate on the application that this is the data I want to extract basically. And you're storing the data here in control K str underscore transaction. Okay. And you're trying to click on accept. So I'm just trying to click on accept. So just hit on confirm. Right. So after which, what I want to do is I want to make sure that my data is also updated in the data table, right? So I'll use multiple XML to make sure that my data got updated. So what I'll do here is I'll create, I want to update the values, right? So I'll say here, update the value of current row of basically, I want to update in the Excel of transaction number, right? So I would like to say here in the UiPath, so you need to update the transaction number. So similarly, you need to update current row of so it is basically STR transaction. You need to update. Okay. So I'll also add another thing related to current row of so I need to update the status as well as the comments. So we have the comments too, right? So what I need to do here is just need this and keep it properly. Okay. So what is the status I will update here? So I'll say since it was a happy flow path I'm designing. So I'll say it as success. So similarly, I will also update the same thing as success. Okay. So which I want to basically do here, right? and after which I want to update this particular data, right? So what you want to do is you need to write the data into Excel. So what's been actually processed. So I'll use a write range. So same Excel, I want to write the data. So in which sheet name you want to write? Okay. So I want to write it in the same Excel here. So but in a different sheet name. So I'm just providing a sheet name called output. What's the data table? You want to write it's on DTable. And make sure that you're adding the headers. Okay. So this is my process which I want to go with, right? So we just built the happy flow path. So let's see what we can try to build out of the exceptions, what we can foresee. Okay. So let me just try to save the file, save our Excel, and also close our application. So just save, try to hit on run file. So it was just launching your application, it's trying to process your data. So based on the inputs what we have in Excel. So it's trying to close, launch it every time. So we have 4 rows of data, right? So once all 4 rows of data was there, it's processed, it's closed. So it's completed. So let's open our particular Excel to see what's the process data we have here in the output sheet. So we have an output sheet here, and we can see here the data got processed. We have our transaction numbers, and we also have the status as success and comments as success. So this is the happy flow path, right? But now let's say I have another data which is starting from 67, 44, and maybe 89. Okay. So you should not process your particular data if your cache and value is less than 100. So that is my intention. So what if your value is less than 100? You should not process that particular transaction. So you should write here as exception, a business exception, and in the comments it should write saying that hey, if there's something a business exception came into picture and your cash value less than 100. So that is what it should be writing, right? So let's see how we can process that particular things. So I'll have an input here, which is basically less than 100, and we'll try to process that particular data, how it should be there. Okay. So that's my intention. So I'll have more data here. Okay. So how to do that now? So now we need to have something called exception handling coming into picture. So where we need to keep that exception handling. So how to handle the exceptions basically. Sure. Right. So basically I need to handle the exception in the particular body. So I will try to surround this with something called a try catch block. Okay. So from the body, I can just utilize that particular thing. So let me try to search for the try catch block. Okay, try catch. In the body, I have this particular try catch. And I can say that all the activities related to the particular process should be there inside this try catch. Okay. So what is the purpose of this particular try catch? So we will try to catch the particular error, and in the catch block we'll try to segregate what is the type of the error, and we would like to process the data, right? So we will try to see at which activity there might be a process exception might occur. We will try to catch that particular in the try block. So once we try to catch that, we will try to throw that to the catch block. In the catch block, we will try to see whether it was a business exception or a system exception, and we will try to process it accordingly based on the requirement, right? So since we are trying to talk something that was related to system exception, so what is the system exception? If I need to write the condition, right, basically. So if your value basically cash in, which is there in integer, right? So I'm just converting that to integer. Since your cash in value str, so let me just zoom it. Okay, so let me just write the condition. So int of str cash in value is less than 100. So if your value is less than 100, so what you'll do is you will try to throw your particular exception. So I'll use a throw here. So what I'll do is I'll try to define the exception here. So I'll say it's a business exception, right? So new business rule exception. So it states that the caching value is less than 100. Okay. So this is my exception which I'm trying to throw. So if it is not less than 100, what it should do? It should process your data. So this is what we'll try to do simply, right? So since we are trying to catch that and we need to throw that into the catch block, so we will try to utilize the catch block here. So what you are trying to catch here? I'm trying to catch business rule exceptions, right? I'll search for the exception. So I'll try to say I'm trying to capture business rule exception. If the business rule exception happened, what do you want to do basically? Right? So I would like to say at the end we have multiple SN, right? So we need to make sure that the data is false, and we need to have the data. So I'll use this multiply sign to write it in the catch block. So we'll say that it's not success, the status. So we'll keep the transaction number as NA because we are not processing the data. And we'll keep the status here as a business rule exception. Okay. And we would like to say what is the reason for the business rule exception, right? So we have something called exception dot message. Okay. So whatever the exception message came into picture. So we would like to write the data. So this is our process. We have just now gracefully handled our business rule exceptions. So using our try catch block, right? So let's try to run the process. So for this particular data in the output, it should say the transaction number is NA. You have something called status as a business rule exception, and the comment says your cash value is less than 100. Okay. So let me just save this and try to run the same. So cint means you're converting string value to integer. Exactly. So since it was an integer, we cannot write the expressions on the integer. So we are just trying to convert that into integer. Okay. So what I want to do is process our application thing. So let me just save it and try to run the file. So we can see here it's processing cash value which is greater than 100. It's 100. So cash value is 273. Yes, it should be processing. So we have 142. So we have now 324. So we are having even 123. But in the middle, we have one transaction which is of 67, which is not processed and it's completed. So let me just open the output file. Let's see what's the outcome that's been written for us. So this is the particular file. So this is our input file. So this transaction should not be processed. So we can see here, this particular transaction was not processed and it was saying your transaction number is basically not available. So why it was not available? Because it's a business rule exception since your cash value is less than 100. Right. So this is how you can handle your business rule exceptions based on your requirements. So now let's see how we need to handle our system exception. Okay. So what we can do is, So now we would like to process the data, but in the middle, I just want to close the application and see what happens. So we have here in the body try catch block. So I need to add an exception related to system exception, right? What happens if the system exception comes into picture? So I would like to say if something system exception came into picture, so you can also just say it's a system exception. It's not a business rule, right? So it's a system exception, right? So what I'll do is I'll simply keep a small message box just before our particular click. So before click, I'll just keep a message box to see what I can do to make sure that I'm trying to create some a business exception. So what I'll do is I'll just use a message box. So before accepting, so I'll just say like it's a test. I just want to go with. Right. So what I'll do, I'll just save. I'll try to run the file now. So just before clicking on accept, what I'm trying to do is sometimes your application might not respond or else like it might be closed due to some issues and all. So I'm trying to forcefully create an exception here by closing my application without actually clicking on accept, right? So what happens if something wrong happened there? So will it be processing next transactions or not? So that is what I want to see here. It might take around like 30 seconds because by default 30 seconds is where the time that was taken for an activity to see whether my element was there or not. So after which it will try to process the data for the next transaction. See here. So first transaction was not happening, but it was happy to continue with the second transaction. It is now launching the third transaction. So in the third transaction also I'll try to close. So let's see if we'll process the remaining two successfully or not. And also in the report also will I be getting why the exception has occurred or not. So that is what my intention here to just get the data for us. Okay. So I'll just click on OK so that it's a happy flow path. That's the last transaction. Right. So let's process all that particular data. Let's try to open our Excel file to see what's the outcome that's been processed for our particular data. Right. So let me just grab the data. Right. So we have this particular data. So we can see out of 6 transactions, so 3 were successful, 1 did not process due to business rule exception, and 2 did not process due to system exception. So what is the system exception here? It could not find the user interface element for the action. Yes, it was not able to find out because we have closed that particular application when it was trying to search for the element called accept and click on the particular things. So this is how you can handle your particular exceptions gracefully. Not only the happy flow path, you should also be handling something that was related to business rule exception, system rule exception, and also how the reporting happens. So reporting is nothing but we should be able to be in a stage to say the status of all the transactions that's been processed, whether it was success, failure, if it was a failure, why it is failed due to a business rule exception, or else something that was related to system rule exception, right? So that is what our agenda, which we thought of showcasing today here in terms of input, I'm like UI automation. So we also had a concept called object repository, right? So what is this object repository will be helping us? So what I'll do is I'll just take a small sequence. So just create, right? So what I'll do, I'll just click on object repository. I just want to create a new application, right? So I'll just hit on new application. So under this new application, I just want to make sure that I'm trying to add a screen, right? So the screen name is basically any teller. So what I'll do is I'll say that I'm trying to automate an application. So indicate on the screen. That is the application I'm trying to work with, right? So create a screen. So and in the screen, I want to identify the elements, right? So I'll say like capture elements. So I would like to say capture all the elements. We can do it manually also. So let's see what is this capturing elements and all. So we are able to capture the elements here, right? Fine. So I'll say like capture. Instead of you identifying the elements, so automatically we have a feature to just make sure that we are actually capturing all the elements. So I'd like to say, hey, thanks for capturing all the elements and just save. Okay. So what happens now? So if you open this application, you can see a cache in element. Okay. So you have an element called not on US check, on US check, right? And also you have something called accept to. So where you can just click on accept, right? So how I can utilize this particular this accept button, right? How I can utilize these things to make sure my development was different from what I have done here. So what I'll do is I'll simply say that I'm trying to use an teller application. I'll drag and drop my screen, right? I'm dragging and dropping the elements here. So earlier I'm trying to drag and drop the activities, but now I'm trying to drag and drop the elements directly from the object repository. So once you drag and drop, hey, this is something, it's an application, so it should be launched. So it was trying to take the use application of browser. So now I want to enter something in the caching. I'll try to drag in. So it will try to say what you can do with the caching. I want to say that I want to type into. Okay. So what is the value you want to type into this? I already have the elements here. I'm trying to just drag and drop the elements. I'm trying to do the automation for my particular process. Okay. So after clicking on caching, I want to just enter some value or not on US check. So what I want to do? I want to type in. So you would like to see here what is the value you want to type in on not on US check. It's 200. So similarly, I have another element called on US check where I want to type some value here again. So what's the value you want to type in? So I want to type a value called 300. And finally, I want to just click on accept basically. Okay. So this is where I want to click on accept. So what do you want to do? I want to just click, right? So what is the purpose of utilizing object repository? So let's say that I'm using a caching which I need to enter multiple times in my process. So in my process, I'm trying to enter the particular data in the cache and column for like 5 times or 10 times. So no need to identify the element 10 times or 5 times. So you can simply do it only once and can you use your particular element wherever it is required. And if there is a change in the application, so what happens sometimes your application also get updated and some elements might also get updated. Let's say that if there is something called accept got updated and you have utilized accept in 10 times in the process, you need to go to all the 10 places to change. But you can change here only the particular selector of the accept so that wherever it was utilized inside your particular process, it's automatically updated. The maintenance of your particular project will be a bit easier when you're trying to utilize the concept of object repository, right? So that is our agenda here for what we can do here with the object repository. So and also you can also decrease your development efforts to make sure that hey, I'm trying to have the elements already captured for us. So I'm just trying to process your data. So that is what we try to do here, utilizing the object repository. And object repository can only be seen in the modern design experience, but not on the classic design experience, right? So it's trying to enter the data and click on accept. So just a small thing which we have done here in terms of object repository. So earlier we used to drag and drop activities and say, hey, indicate the element and do something on the element what you are trying to do. But when you're trying to utilize object repository, you will try to drag and drop the element. And on the element, what activity you want to perform is something we will try to take an action. So that is what we can do with the object repository. And also we have seen what's the advantage of utilizing object repository, right? So hope we are clear. I think we are good to wind up our session. If you have any queries, please do let me know. Or else we are just good to go.
Yeah, hi Kiran.
Yes.
Yeah, Kiran, everything is pretty clear. But one thing, like just we will imagine like that we are having an the Excel sheet. Within that Excel
Uh-huh.
sheet, we will have an the lakhs of rows are going to be available. Okay.
Uh-huh.
When we are having that much of in the huge data, okay, while we
Mm-hmm.
are reading that data, it will impact it will struck at the middle. There will be a chance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I came to know how we can handle this by using the database activities.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how we can do that one, if possible, at least in the next session, can you show us like how to read the data by making use of in the database activities?
So it's nothing but it's not like using database activities. So
Okay.
we will be trying to use Excel as a database basically.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, correct.
You can search in
Excellent. Yeah,
forum where you can get the resources, but if the time permits based on our particular plan, we will try to execute the same.
yeah, yeah. Okay.
So how we will know which exception to select because there are many exceptions in the list. You have selected the business exception and then the system exception. So business exception is something we are defining, right? So you can say that these were the rules which might deviate in relates to the business exception. So when it's coming to system exception, even the selector is not found, it comes under system exception. Even something, let's say that you are trying to read an array which is of four elements, but you're trying to read 10th element which is not there, out of bound exception, right? So you can also come that particular, it also comes under the particular category of system exception there. Let's say that a null point exception came into picture. It also comes under the system exception. So all the things related to application or system can be categorized as system exception, and rest of the things you can categorize that into business exceptions. It really depends. I think somebody's typing. Let's wait for Kirtana to type something. So when we need to use try-catch exception handler and global exception handler. So try-catch exception can be surrounded on any activity, single activity, group of activities, or even on a XAML. But global exception handler can be utilized only for a particular sort of an exception you foresee that can happen across your particular process. So that is what we can do in terms of global exception handler and the try-catch exception handler. We'll try to showcase the global exception handler also going forward. So tomorrow we have a session that was related to Excel as well as database. So Excel will talk. See, generally when we are trying to talk about any automation, we are trying to utilize Excel, right? Mostly we'll try to use it for either reading the data. After reading, you will try to do some sort of operations on it, either to filter, either to delete some unwanted data. So that is what we try to show, and also write it back to the Excel. So we will also try to interact with an SQL server tomorrow and try to see what we can get out of it. Okay, sure. So thanks for joining the session. We'll meet tomorrow. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.